For decades now, farmers and ranchers have struggled to control the rising population of destructive and dangerous feral hogs.
Brazil is facing one of the most alarming biological invasions ever recorded. A unique hybrid type of pig, covered in a natural armor, made of scar tissue and hardened fat up to 5 centimeters thick, is rendering most traditional control methods ineffective. They can breach electric fences, evade traps, and reproduce at an astonishing rate, up to 20 piglets per litter. Their presence not only disrupts forest ecosystems but also poses a serious risk of spreading disease, directly impacting the global food supply chain. The origins of this situation date back to the early 20th century, when European wild boars were introduced to South America for hunting purposes. Already known for their resilience, they gradually adapted to the new environment. When hunting farms were no longer maintained, these animals escaped into the wild and began expanding their range. The turning point came when they crossbred with domestic pigs, animals known for their high reproductive capacity. This combination didn't weaken them. Instead, it created a hybrid with both wild strength and rapid growth. The result is the Java porco, a population that can reach up to 300 kilograms per individual, with exceptional physical power and adaptability. One of their most notable features is the dense subdermal structure composed of scar tissue, hardened fat, and tightly connected muscle layers, functioning as a natural shield that significantly reduces the impact of conventional control measures. In addition, their tusks are constantly sharpened through natural friction, becoming highly effective defensive tools. Beyond their physical advantages, they exhibit strong adaptability, living in organized groups led by experienced females who can memorize vast territories and adjust behavior when facing threats. As a result, their impact goes far beyond foraging, extending into environmental damage, as their rooting behavior alters soil structure, disrupts ecosystems, affects water sources, and increases the risk of transmitting diseases to livestock and humans if not properly controlled. In this context, large-scale control methods have been implemented with a completely different approach. Instead of causing disruption, trap systems are designed to blend into the natural environment. Steel posts are arranged in a wide circular formation, not fully enclosed from the start. There is no sudden drop mechanism or anything that might trigger panic. Every detail is designed to create a sense of familiarity and safety. Food is initially placed outside the area, then gradually moved deeper inside over time. This process continues without direct human intervention, allowing the herd to develop a natural habit of entering the space. Once familiarity reaches a stable level, the entire group begins to move into the trap area as part of their normal behavior. At this stage, human involvement truly begins, through remote monitoring systems using cameras. Operators patiently wait for a single moment, when every individual is fully inside the controlled area. No animals left outside, no unexpected variables. Only when this condition is met is the decision made. The activation mechanism is quick and precise. The gate closes in an instant, forming a fully enclosed space with no gaps. However, behind that moment lies a preparation process that can take days, even weeks. If triggered too early, part of the herd will escape and change their behavior. If too late, the opportunity may be lost. This is not a race against time, but a coordination of observation, analysis, and perfect timing. The entire process demands patience and minimizes human presence to the greatest extent possible. There are no sudden interventions, and the environment is kept unchanged to maintain a natural feel. It is this stillness that allows the herd to continue its routine, while in reality, every movement is carefully calculated. When the moment comes, a single precise action is enough to complete the entire operation.
Load up! Load up! Load up!
In Bavaria, where dense forests intertwine with agricultural land, the presence of wild boars is no longer a rare occurrence. Their numbers continue to grow, spilling into fields and turning the soil into chaotic, torn-up patches. More concerning is that even during the day, some individuals are now pushing deeper into residential areas, crossing roads, appearing near homes and gardens. Encounters are no longer unusual, and in some cases, people have been attacked when getting too close. The situation has escalated rapidly, forcing authorities to launch a large-scale control operation. Reconnaissance efforts are carried out continuously, combining helicopters and unmanned aerial devices to pinpoint exactly where the herds are hiding and the routes they follow. The data quickly reveals a clear pattern. They do not move randomly but repeat familiar paths night after night. Based on this information, control teams begin planning trap installations at key points. Every detail is carefully calculated, because even a small mistake could cause the entire herd to disappear and become more cautious. Once the location is confirmed, the trap setup process officially begins. Heavy-duty steel mesh panels are transported into the selected area and assembled into a closed circular structure based on prior survey data. Steel posts are driven deep into the damp forest ground and tightened with high-tension straps to ensure absolute stability. The sound of metal echoes, breaking the stillness of the Bavarian forest. From the outside, the structure appears simple, just a circular fence. But in reality, it is a large-scale trap, designed to close at the precise decisive moment. Once the frame is complete, the control team moves into the final preparation stage. Infrared cameras are installed around the perimeter, mounted high on tree trunks to monitor the entire approach to the trap. Every action is carried out quickly and with strict control to minimize human traces, avoiding any disruption to the herd's natural behavior. Then, bait is placed. Corn and sugar beets, common food sources for wild boars in Europe, are scattered to form a trail leading inward. The largest portion is placed at the center, acting as the main attractant, gradually drawing the herd deeper inside without them realizing the boundary around them.
He's automatically.
Drop trap.
When everything is ready, the area returns to silence. No signs of human activity remain. Only the faint scent of food drifting through the cold air. Somewhere in the forest, sensitive noses have already picked up the signal. As night falls, the silence grows heavier. Then, the first movements appear on the monitoring screens. The herd has returned. The lead boar steps forward, pauses, sniffs, and scans the surroundings. Behind it, the rest of the group waits in the darkness. Naturally cautious, they are slowly pulled closer by the scent of food. Guided by the leader, one by one they begin to enter, without hesitation, without suspicion. When the entire herd is fully inside the trap's range, the decisive moment arrives. The trap gate is triggered. A sudden metallic sound shatters the forest stillness. Instantly, the entire herd erupts into panic. They rush in all directions, slamming into the fence, trampling over one another in an attempt to escape. The ground is churned up under the weight of dozens of bodies. The largest individuals throw their full force against the steel structure, but the flexible mesh system absorbs the impact without breaking. Smaller ones try to leap over, but the height and enclosure stop every attempt. Chaos spreads as they realize there is no way out. When the control team returns, the scene has changed. The herd is no longer violently struggling. Many are exhausted after hours of trying to escape, while others stand still in a state of high alert. With more than 20 animals contained in a single capture, the farmer can finally breathe a sigh of relief. This is not just the result of one night's effort, but proof of a precise strategy, built on a deep understanding of the species' behavior. And this time, the cycle of destruction has truly been broken.
Come on. There we go. Oh.
A morning that seemed ordinary suddenly reveals a completely different scene. The ground is torn up, rows of crops uprooted, leaving scattered gaps as if an invisible force had swept through. There are no signs of storms or machinery, only deep tracks pressed into the soft soil, stretching in a familiar direction. It points to one clear fact: the wild boar herd has returned, following the same route, repeating the same pattern night after night. First, the damage appears scattered and easy to overlook. A corner of the field disturbed, a few plants lightly damaged. But within days, everything begins to change. The signs grow denser, the affected area expands quickly. The boars no longer move alone, but in organized groups, repeatedly returning to places where they once found food. The real concern is not just their numbers, but how fast they learn. Each approach becomes an adjustment in behavior. The pin-style traps begin to appear as a direct response to this situation. They are not placed randomly, but positioned precisely along routes the herd has used many times. Strong steel frames form an enclosed space, large enough to hold multiple animals at once. This is not just a trap, but a calculated stop point based on the movement patterns of the entire group. Inside the trap, the one-way gate mechanism plays a critical role. As the boars enter, the gate opens naturally. But once they pass through, it locks automatically, preventing any return. This does not trigger immediate panic, allowing the herd's behavior to remain stable in the first moments, giving other animals time to follow inside.
There you go. Female goat, another female.
Bait is always placed deep inside, forcing the lead animal to move fully in before stopping.
ton of hogs out.
When one begins to feed, the others quickly follow.
They make it to where
This chain reaction increases the trap's effectiveness. In a short time, multiple animals can be contained without any direct intervention. In areas with higher boar density, net traps become the next step. No longer limited to a small space, the system expands to surround an entire feeding zone. At first, the net is kept raised, allowing the herd to move in and out freely, creating a complete sense of safety. Over several days, the herd forms a new routine. Enter, feed, and leave without danger. When their alertness drops low enough, the activation moment is chosen. The net drops all at once, covering the area in seconds and capturing the entire group with no chance of escape. In states like Texas, some operations even use daytime helicopter observation to map movement routes before deploying traps at night. However, in situations where individual animals must be handled quickly, snare traps are still used. Cable loops are hidden beneath a thin layer of soil, placed exactly along familiar paths. When a boar steps into position, the loop tightens instantly, fast, precise, and nearly silent. Each method has its limits, but when combined, they form a complete control system. From holding entire herds in pin traps, covering wide areas with nets, to precisely targeting individuals with snares, all approaches follow the same principle. Not direct confrontation, but using the animal's own behavior to control it effectively.
Se convierte en un lugar seguro para los marcias.
This is a quiet process that demands patience and constant observation. No method works if placed in the wrong location or at the wrong time. But when every factor is calculated correctly, traps not only reduce damage, but also help restore balance. And the question remains, can humans always stay one step ahead, or will they continue adapting to the ever-changing behavior of wild boar herds?
For many years of participating in wild boar control operations, seasoned individuals have consistently emphasized a core principle. When wild boars begin appearing on public roads, the issue has already extended beyond the scope of a single farm. A fully grown individual can weigh hundreds of kilograms. If it suddenly charges onto the road in the dark, it is fully capable of causing serious collisions. In states such as Texas or Florida, such situations occur frequently, and the consequences often unfold faster than humans can respond. Early in the morning, groups of farmers, together with control teams, were already in place. A large map was spread out, and high-risk areas were quickly identified. Sections of land that had been uprooted, areas where livestock frequently appeared, as well as crossing points where herds typically moved across roads were all carefully marked. This was not a spontaneous reaction, but a plan built on real-world observation and data accumulated over time. At the central location, a large-scale corral trap system was constructed. This was the key element of the entire strategy, to contain the entire herd in a single operation. The setup process was deliberate and calculated. Bait was arranged in layers, guiding from the outside inward, forming a natural path that led the herd deeper into the trap zone. The objective was not to attract them immediately, but to create a sense of familiarity. During the first nights, cameras only captured them standing outside, probing and observing. By the second night, a few smaller individuals began to step inside. Then, over successive nights, their alertness gradually faded, and the entire herd moved deeper toward the center. Persistence began to yield results. Once the herd had developed a habit of approaching the trap area, the moment for action was determined. The gate was triggered and shut in an instant. Inside, chaos erupted immediately. The herd compressed together, circling and constantly shifting direction within the confined space. Heavy impacts against the steel frame produced deep, muffled sounds, not overly piercing, but heavy enough to create a palpable sense of tension for anyone standing nearby. Even so, experienced individuals were not drawn into that chaos. They did not focus on the movement of the herd, but instead observed the structure of the trap itself, every joint, every load-bearing bar, every point that might be subjected to intense pressure. Because this was the most critical phase. A single minor flaw in design or installation could cause the entire plan to collapse within seconds. Inside the trap, the herd continued to move relentlessly, searching for any possible escape. Yet the structure of the trap remained intact. No weak points were broken, no gaps emerged. All pressure was contained within controlled limits. And that was the defining factor, not strength, but the ability to control the situation. In surrounding areas, secondary traps also began to take effect. Individuals that broke away or deviated from the group were intercepted. The entire team held their positions, performing exactly the roles assigned in advance. There were no sudden changes, no actions outside the plan. Everything operated like a carefully calculated system. After just 1 week, the effectiveness became clearly visible. No new tracks appeared near residential areas. No more herds crossed the roads at night. Cameras recorded a distinct change. The area grew quieter, and daily life gradually returned to normal. Roads that once posed hidden dangers had now become safer, at least for the time being. A well-conceived plan, executed with patience and precision, will always deliver more sustainable results than any rushed reaction. This is not merely a story about wildlife control, but about how humans re-establish boundaries between residential areas and nature, between stability and chaos. And from such operations, a principle gradually becomes clear. When the movement of these animals can be controlled, everything around them can be protected.
Not everyone has ever seen an entire herd of wild boars trapped inside a single enclosure. I've witnessed it a few times, but never on that kind of scale. That night, when the system tightened, the tension filled the air, anchor lines humming, the net shaking hard. Inside, the herd panicked, trampling over each other and searching for a way out. And it all started from a patch of ground that had been torn apart. The first time I visited Uncle James's farm, things had already gone far beyond control. The grass field was ripped into large patches, the soil turned over heavily, with signs scattered across the entire area. You didn't even need to see the boars. Just looking at the ground told the whole story. A large herd had passed through during the night, and not just once. Neighbors nearby confirmed they kept coming back for weeks, despite every attempt to drive them away. Lights stayed on all night, guards rotated shifts, even multiple deterrent methods were used, but nothing worked. What stood out wasn't just the level of destruction, but how quickly the herd adapted. They returned on schedule, followed the same paths, and grew more confident each time. Once it had gone on that long, the solution couldn't be reactive anymore. It had to shift into a controlled, systematic approach. The next morning, we began setting up the trap early. The netting was carried into the forest. Teams worked in sections, each anchor point secured tightly to tree trunks. The work seemed simple, but it demanded precision, because even a small misalignment could render the entire system useless. Once everything was in place, it became completely still. There was nothing left to do but wait for the right moment. The herd wasn't forced into the trap. They followed their own habits, guided by bait and familiarity. The lead boar appeared first, paused to observe, then stepped inside. The rest followed behind, one by one, without the slightest suspicion. Once they started feeding, their alertness gradually dropped. The longer they stayed, the deeper they moved into the center, never realizing the enclosure had already closed around them. The circular trap design worked exactly as intended. There were no blind spots to escape through, no weak points to break. When they sensed something wrong, their only instinct was to run. But in a closed circular space, running only drained their energy faster. They kept circling, crashing into the net, sending strong vibrations through it, yet the entire structure held firm. Every charge only tightened the net further, never weakening it. There were no gaps, no break points. No matter how they struggled, rammed, or tried to break free, it all led to the same outcome: exhaustion. That was when I understood the core principle of this system. Once the entire herd steps into the circle, the chance of escape is almost gone. Not because the trap is complex, but because it uses the herd's own behavior against them. The entire process was monitored through screens. It wasn't fear, it was intense focus. As notifications began appearing continuously from different points, we knew the system was working exactly as planned. Not just one trap, but multiple locations were reporting results. The feeling in that moment was a mix of tension and relief, as the long chain of damage was finally brought to a stop. What came next followed a set procedure. Each animal was controlled and transported, the numbers so large we had to rethink the logistics. But what mattered more was the outcome. The farm was no longer being destroyed every night, and the people living there could finally sleep peacefully again. On the drive back, in the quiet of the vehicle, I realized that success didn't come from a single moment, but from a process of observation and patience. Control doesn't come from the size of the trap, but from the precision of timing and execution. If you've ever faced a situation like this, share your experience. And if you found this useful, don't forget to follow for more real-world strategies like this.
African swine fever, or ASF, is an extremely dangerous virus for both domestic pigs and wild boars, and what makes it especially alarming is its ability to survive for a very long time in the environment. In cold conditions or in meat products that have not been properly processed, the virus can remain alive for hundreds of days, silently extending the risk of large-scale transmission. Although ASF does not pose a danger to humans, it is a serious threat to the pig industry and the global pork supply. The virus can spread through direct contact between wild boars and domestic pigs, through contaminated meat products, as well as through polluted environments. Because of how quickly it can spread and its impact on entire herds, whenever a suspected outbreak appears, specialist teams must immediately arrive in protective gear to control the site, prevent the risk from spreading further, and protect biosecurity in the surrounding area. For that reason, the damage in my uncle's field was no longer just a story of crop loss. When wild boars began appearing in large numbers around the land, the danger was not limited to rows of corn being torn apart, but also to the possibility that they could become a link carrying disease closer to livestock areas. A herd of wild boars passing through the farm could leave behind not only tracks, mud, and trampled crops, but also the fear of silent transmission that the human eye cannot see. That is why we could no longer keep reacting in a piecemeal way, dealing with the problem one night at a time, and instead had to move toward a more systematic management approach, where every step, from observation and movement control to trap deployment, had to serve a larger purpose: protecting crops, protecting livestock, and reducing biosecurity risks across the entire area. After completing the risk assessment and setting the traps, we moved into the stage that required the most patience: baiting. We used clean fermented corn, a scent that strongly attracts wild boars. Keeping the bait point consistent over multiple nights helped gather the whole herd into a predictable movement pattern, while also reducing environmental disturbance and limiting the risk of them spreading out to other farms. By the third day, they still stood at a distance, sniffing cautiously. By the fifth day, the boldest ones finally began to move closer and tasted. We kept watching until the 10th day. After several nights without detecting any danger, their level of caution gradually dropped. They kept coming back again and again, slowly treating the place as a safe feeding spot. And when the wild boars had lost most of their caution, the trap system also entered a ready state. That night was the decisive moment. Images from the cameras were transmitted live to the monitoring center, while we relied on the terrain and the size of the herd to choose the right moment to activate the trap. And along a narrow trail, a leg snare had been set at exactly the point where a wild boar usually stepped. This was not the kind of trap meant to hold an entire herd, but a method designed to target single individuals that broke away from the group or moved through a tight passage. After a long wait, one wild boar slowly advanced along the familiar trail. The moment its front leg touched the exact spot, the trap instantly tightened and held it in place. The whole moment happened very quickly, bringing many days of observation and waiting for the right time to an end. The full herd control strategy had finally proven effective. The next morning, the entire handling process would be carried out humanely and in full accordance with biosecurity standards. Protecting the environment, livestock, and human safety always remains the top priority. Because the ultimate goal is not just to stop immediate damage, but to build a long-term management system, carry out responsible population control, and maintain ecological balance. That is the sustainable solution for protecting crops and moving towards safer coexistence between humans and nature. If this herd can survive tonight, what is preserved is not just a few rows of trees or a patch of farmland. It is an entire year of labor, days under the sun and wind, hours of constant care, all of which can vanish overnight if wild boars sweep through. In many rural areas across the United States, this scenario is no longer unfamiliar. It repeats itself again and again, silently yet devastatingly, as dozens of hectares of land are torn apart before the sun even rises. With wild boars, everything happens faster than human response capacity. They leave little time for thinking or preparation. Once a target is chosen, they move according to their own plan, quietly and with precision. Statistics show that even a group of 15 to 20 individuals is enough to destroy more than 1 hectare of crops within a few nighttime hours. And what is even more concerning than their destructive power is the way they learn. If not addressed early, the damage will quickly spiral out of control. Recovery costs are always far higher than initial prevention costs. And the longer it continues, the more cautious the herd becomes. Sound devices and simple deterrents may work at first, but over time, they gradually lose effectiveness. Wild boars learn very quickly. They adapt, remember, and adjust their behavior after only a few encounters. Instead of betting everything on a large-scale solution from the beginning, the first strategic step is surprisingly simple: set up a small trap for observation. This is not the stage for catching as many as possible, but for understanding the herd's behavior. Which one leads? Which one is the most alert? How long does it take for the entire group to enter the baited area? These seemingly minor details ultimately determine the outcome. Just one small mistake can cause the opportunity to disappear completely. If the herd detects any unusual sign, they may not return for days, even weeks. In wildlife control, understanding behavior is always more important than acting hastily. Patience in the early stage is an investment in long-term effectiveness. Once the herd's movement patterns and reactions become clear, the strategy begins to shift. The setup cannot remain unchanged for too long, as that would make the trap detectable. The trap height is adjusted, and the activation timing is recalculated with greater precision. When the herd's reaction time is reduced to a minimum, the chance of escape becomes almost non-existent. A drop trap does not need to be complex. What matters is timing. When triggered at the right moment, the entire herd has almost no time to scatter. Their herd instinct, the very trait that helps them survive, becomes their weakness. They move together, react together, and when captured, they are captured all at once. As a result, the damage is stopped at the source before it can spread. After successful captures, the trapping system continues to be refined. The mechanism becomes smoother, the structure stronger, yet without unnecessary complexity. Costs may increase, but every adjustment is based on real data collected in the field. Bait placement is optimized. Activation timing is fine-tuned. The goal is not the biggest trap, but the most suitable one for the specific conditions of each area. Ultimately, effectiveness does not come from scale, but from understanding. Understanding how the herd moves. Understanding how they react. And most importantly, understanding when to act. When these elements come together, control is gradually regained. If you have ever faced a similar situation, you will understand that this is not just a battle against an animal. It is a battle of patience, observation, and making the right decision at the right time. Block the right path, act at the critical moment, and above all, always comply with local regulations and work with experienced professionals to ensure safety for both people and the surrounding environment.
In just one night, the entire field seemed to be wiped out by something moving in the darkness. There was no warning, no clear sound. Everything happened so silently that no one noticed. By the next morning, when helicopters began scanning the area, the scale of the damage only became visible from above. Long strips of disturbed soil appeared like cuts slicing across the field, stretching from the forest edge deep into the production area. And this was not an isolated case. Within just a few weeks, the damage surged. Some areas recorded more than 30% of crops affected. And in the United States, total annual losses caused by wild boars exceed $2.5 billion. These numbers did not appear overnight. They accumulated from small, repeating signs, upturned soil, damaged crop rows, expanding empty patches. When everything repeats long enough, it is no longer an incident, but a pattern silently taking shape. Wild boars do not move randomly. They learn and remember extremely quickly. Once they identify an area with a stable food source, they will return along the exact same route. Surveillance cameras show that the herd often appears at the same time, moves in the same direction, and stops at familiar points. This means that without a proper strategy, any temporary prevention becomes meaningless. More importantly, with every failed attempt to intercept them, they grow more cautious. Once they learned the risk, controlling them becomes significantly more difficult. Instead of continuing passive defense, a large-scale trapping system began to be deployed. The location was not chosen randomly, but based on data collected over many consecutive days. An open area located directly along the herd's main travel route was identified as the optimal point. Here, steel posts were driven deep into the ground, forming a circular frame large enough to contain the entire herd if they entered at once. The spacing between the posts was precisely calculated to eliminate weak points. The entire structure had to be strong enough to withstand simultaneous impacts from multiple adult animals. Once the frame was completed, steel mesh panels were secured around it, creating an enclosed space that still felt open enough to avoid suspicion. Every detail was handled carefully, minimizing human scent as much as possible. Then, the most critical phase began: baiting. Fermented corn was spread in a long trail, starting from outside and leading deep into the center of the trap. The scent dispersed lightly, enough to attract without raising alarm. The amount of bait was gradually increased each day to build a sense of complete safety. Any unusual signs were eliminated, ensuring the herd had no reason to distrust the area. During the first nights, the trap was not activated. The herd was allowed to get used to the location, moving in and out freely without encountering any obstacles. Cameras recorded each animal entering, feeding, and leaving calmly. This was the key step. Only when they completely lowered their guard would the opportunity to control the entire herd truly appear. At the right moment, when the number of individuals entering at the same time reached its peak, the trap mechanism was finally triggered. The gate dropped instantly, sealing off all exits. The silence was broken immediately. The herd panicked, charging in all directions, trying to escape. The ground shook under their weight and constant impact. But this time, there were no gaps left to exploit. The system had been designed to contain the entire herd, leaving no individuals outside. And the real change did not lie in the moment the trap closed, but in the nights that followed. No more repeated movements on the cameras. No more tracks stretching along the fences. The field returned to stillness, a different kind of stillness than before, not the calm before damage, but the calm after the cycle had been broken. For the farmers, it was not just a successful control effort. It was the first time they had truly regained control.
Stuff in a mess, isn't it?
For many years working alongside my father in wild boar control, I came to understand one key principle. When they begin appearing on roads, it is no longer just a farm issue. In places like Texas, herds follow familiar routes, so the risk extends beyond crops to traffic as well. A boar weighing hundreds of kilos rushing out at night can cause a serious accident, making control something that must be handled in a structured way. The next morning, I went with my father to meet farmers and the control team. A map was quickly laid out, marking areas of torn soil, repeated trails, and crossing points where herds frequently pass. No one said much, because everyone understood these signs were critical data. They revealed not only location, but also movement patterns that in wide regions like Texas. Some teams use helicopters to observe from above. From that view, movement paths become clearer, disturbed soil lines and trails cutting across fields. The helicopter is not used for capture, but it helps determine exactly where traps should be placed, avoiding mistakes in setup. The operation was divided into two directions. I went with my father to place blocking traps along narrow paths, routes the herd must take to reach residential areas. Meanwhile, another team set up a large corral trap at a central point. If blocking traps guide movement, the corral is where the circle closes, aiming to control the entire herd at once.
Has its own battery pack.
Bait was placed in layers from the outside inward, creating a natural approach. On the first night, the boar stayed outside and observed. On the second night, a few stepped in. Over the following nights, the whole herd gradually became familiar with the area. There was no rush, because acting at the wrong moment could cause them not to return. Once the herd was moving comfortably inside, the most critical moment began. The gate dropped in an instant, and the space inside immediately turned chaotic. Large bodies pressed together, repeatedly hitting the steel frame in search of a way out. The heavy, continuous sound created a clear sense of pressure, even for those watching from outside, that I... In that moment, my father did not focus on the chaos. He focused on structure. He checked load points and joints to make sure everything held steady. If any part failed, all previous planning would become meaningless. This was not the moment to act, but to verify the plan. But the trap held firm. No animal escaped, and no pressure spread outward. At the same time, the outer traps blocked any individuals that tried to break away. The entire team stayed in position, following the plan exactly. That coordination allowed the whole system to function as a closed loop.
You did it. They're not as small. Ooh.
Yep. Come on. Get the bus. Hip. Get the bus. Hip. Let's go ahead and shut it.
That a week later, the results became clear. No more herds crossing roads anymore, and no new tracks near residential areas. Cameras showed growing calm, and people began sleeping better. Roads that once felt dangerous became safer. Not because the problem disappeared, but because it was properly controlled that I intended.
Yeah. Good job. There we go. Yep.
Texas, and many other states, wild boars cause billions of dollars in damage every year. They do not just eat, they destroy soil, roots, and irrigation systems within hours. That is why modern traps are not meant to eliminate them completely, but to control behavior and reduce conflict. If you found this useful, leave a comment and don't forget to follow for more real-world situations.